Hello and welcome to the Mediabox at a PACE hybrid plenary session, online and in Strasbourg. The Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe says it's deeply concerned about the devastating impact of the COVID-19 pandemic has so far had on children and their rights. Baroness Doreen Massey is the author of a report before PACE from the Committee on Social Affairs, Health and Sustainable Development. Baroness Massey, what have been some of the biggest issues that children have had to face during the pandemic?
Well, I think that's the important question. Children, of course, have not been really infected very much by COVID-19, but they have been seriously affected in many kinds of ways because of the deficiencies of health education services, the plunging into poverty of many families, and also, sadly, the abuse that's been going on, either domestic abuse or abuse directed to children, which has, of course, affected their morale and their confidence. And I think the other thing that's been affected badly is their ability to socialise. What children are saying is that they have really missed their friends and missed socialising. And that babies, of course, have had problems because they've been with perhaps one or two parents, but not with grandparents or other contacts with their families. And I think that may have affected their ability to later on socialise. And I think that's been borne out by evidence.
And part of your report's resolution is calling for a minimum level of income for parents and carers of children. Some governments might say that they are already providing adequate financial provision for children and carers. What would you say to that?
I would say that they had not, in that case, envisaged a pandemic of such proportions and such an emergency. You know, in emergencies, children tend to get left behind. And I understand that there are other priorities for governments to tackle, such as care homes, such as the elderly. I understand that. But I think we cannot neglect our children. They're the future generations. If we leave them desperate for education, for socialization, for arts, for culture, for sport, then we are doing us a very serious disservice.
Your report is recommending a review of post-pandemic recovery programs from the point of view of children. What are you hoping this will achieve for the so-called COVID generation of children and young people?
Yes, I've talked a lot across Europe to the European Parliament, to the European Commission, to World Health Organization, to teachers, to the voluntary sector, and to children themselves about this. And I think that what they would all say is they wish to collaborate across Europe on this issue because it's not just a single country issue. So what I would hope is that the Council of Europe can help in this. The Council of Europe can ask the Committee of Ministers to call meetings, seminars, to discuss this issue across Europe and to come up with a strategy for addressing the deficit that children are facing.
When you say the deficit, could you be a bit more specific?
Yes, of course. The deficit is coming because they have not had the services they need and deserve as expressed in the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. And they have not had the attention they probably need because of COVID. They've been isolated, and I think that is a serious deficit to them. And I mean, some children, I think, have not suffered. Some children have been quite happy to be able to organise their own work and to be near their families. But some children, particularly those who are vulnerable, who have not got the benefits of a family that has the money and the inclination to be able to help them. So I think that it's a very important issue to make up for that somehow. And that's what I mean by the deficit. To make up for it, we will have to work together. And we'll have to consult children, which I may come on to in a minute if you ask me, consult children and consult families and consult politicians so that we actually address this issue at a local and national level of children suffering because of this pandemic. We've got to make up for it.
Now, we hear so much from governments and indeed from non-governmental organisations, but we don't really hear from the young people themselves. A voice for the young? Is that partly what you're calling for?
Absolutely, absolutely. I think that children, according to the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, have the right to be heard. And I think we've got to develop that. And we're hoping to develop that in Europe, because I have another initiative and a report coming up about this in Europe. And I think that there are two reasons for this. One is that children themselves benefit from being asked what they want and need. They're very articulate about this. And organisations and governments have the advantage from them in knowing what children actually want and basing policy and practice on what children say they need, and not just on some top-down imagined fantasy of what children need.
Baroness Doreen Massey, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you so much.